Excuse me, Pastor, we can't hear you.
Okay. Mic check. How does that sound for you guys?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Sounds good.
Very good.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So we're here. We're live on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, all those good things, and of course with my family on Zoom. So good to be with everybody on tonight for this Wednesday night Bible study. All right. So on tonight, let's look at this thing here. I like this topic for tonight. Have you ever found yourself in the middle of a brutal season? Maybe you've been waiting on a breakthrough that just don't seem like it's going to come. Or maybe you're facing pressure that feels entirely unfair. And you look up and you just ask God, God, why me? What did I do wrong? We've all been there. But what if the problem isn't the trial itself? What if the problem is that we're misreading the exam? See, sometimes in the kingdom of God, testing is never about God trying to figure out something he doesn't already know. He already knows your heart. Testing is about shifting our perspective and changing our spiritual capacity. But here's what most Christians miss. Most of us miss a lot of the times is the fact that God doesn't use a one size fits all sort of test. And tonight we are diving into two completely different types of spiritual tests you will face in this life. First, there are tests of growth. This is the refining fire. It's designed to burn away your impurities, break your pride, and build your character. It's about who you are becoming. And second, there is the test of proof. This is the the testing phase, the stress test. This isn't about you being made to be better, but it's about proving the faith that you profess on Sunday is actually real on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. That what you show and what you profess on Sunday is real when everything else starts to get stripped away. It's a stress test to show whose you are, who you belong to. So, our objective tonight is simple but life changing. We're going to figure out exactly why God allows these trials, how to look at your current struggle, and distinguish whether you are being refined or being proven. And most importantly, how to navigate both when an unshakable or with an unshakable faith. If you've been feeling the heat lately, grab your Bible, open your heart, and let's get into the word. But before we do, for those of you viewing on YouTube and TikTok, go ahead and smash that like button and share this with someone who could use some encouragement on tonight. Study begins right now. So, how many times have any of you found yourself asking the question, why me, during a trial? I submit to you that a better question to ask when you're going through something is actually, what kind of test is this? In scripture, testing is rarely about God finding out something he doesn't already know, but it's usually about something or shifting our perspective and changing our spiritual state. A key scripture is James 1, verse 2 through 4, where it says, "My brethren, I count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing." The question becomes, why is our immediate reaction to a test usually escape rather than endurance? Why is our immediate reaction to a test usually escape rather than endurance? Let's get into it. My first point I want to make for this topic, or for that question, is that there's a danger with the comfort of idolatry. We live in a culture that is designed around convenience, instant gratification, and pain elimination. We have been conditioned to believe that discomfort equals a problem. So we naturally subconsciously view spiritual discomfort as a sign that we've stepped outside of God's will, rather than the fact that we might have stepped right into the center of God's will. Today, they push this microwave faith myth. We live in an era of 2 day shipping, nowadays 1 day shipping. Sometimes you can order something in the morning and get it by the afternoon. We're accustomed to instant streaming. We accidentally apply that same timeline to our spiritual maturity. But we cannot have a microwave faith. It does not exist. It does not work that way. We expect peace, patience, character to be downloaded instantly. But God uses a slow cooking, painful process often. We assume that when he uses this slow cooking method, that something is broken or that God is angry with us. You might have even had people, or you've heard somebody say that because of what somebody's going through and the amount of time it's taken them to get a breakthrough, that they must have done something or they're not right with God. But we have to realize that microwave faith cannot survive a killing fire type of trial. And we're going to see more of that here in a minute. So the microwave faith myth is a problem. The second thing is we have this anatomy of good pain. I liken it to, because I like the gym, I liken it to going to the gym. If muscles are not burning, if you don't feel burning in your muscles, pain in your muscles, they're not growing. Yet when we experience spiritual friction or emotional soreness, folk immediately try to medicate it or pray it away. But we need to learn to distinguish between the destructive pain of sin and the constructive pain of discomfort, of spiritual hypertrophy or growth. Then there's the geography of God's will. Culture tells you that the safest place to be is where there's no conflict. But scripturally, the center of God's will is often a storm. The disciples were exactly where Jesus told them to be when the tempest hit the Sea of Galilee. If your theology tells you that God will always put you under smooth sailing, if you believe that, you will jump ship the moment a wave hits. And we see it all the time. As soon as something don't go your way, you will believe that you took a wrong turn. Then there's Satan's counterfeit comfort. Remember, we're still talking about the comfort idolatry. Under this, you have Satan's counterfeit comfort. And what is that? Because we hate discomfort, the enemy loves to use. This becomes his greatest trap. And it isn't obvious sin that is his greatest trap. No, it becomes this exit ramp when you start going through something that God is putting you through. The enemy comes along and he offers you a counterfeit peace, a counterfeit escape, a counterfeit way to relieve the pressure that you're going through right now. I know somebody under the sound of my voice can testify with this. It's like the easy escape comes, right? It's a way to relieve the pressure right now. Compromising, walking away, quitting. But we have to expose that lie. The lie that temporary relief is better than eternal refinement. We have to be cautious of not misunderstanding the purpose of the fire. When a test hits, our immediate survival instinct of preservation wants to kick in. What do I mean? We want to escape because we are so afraid of the pain of the fire, the burning of the fire, the consuming of the fire. Of course, in real life, if a fire hits your home and is burning in an area, you want to get out of that area. And that's what we try to do spiritually when God is putting us through something. But we have to train ourselves to remember that God doesn't put us in the fire to burn us up. If he puts us in the fire, if he allows us to get thrown into the fire, it's to burn off the things that are holding you back. Some folk on here trying to escape fires that God is using to burn the stuff in your life, burn it out of your life because you don't need it. Escape saves your comfort, but endurance saves your destiny. When you look at Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in Daniel chapter 3, and you can go there on your own, but this is the ultimate literal spiritual example of fire not consuming you, but burning off what's holding you back. Of course, when you're in the heat of the fire, there's going to be the temptation of escape, self preservation. King Nebuchadnezzar gave them one last chance to bow down to the golden statue or to be thrown into a literal blazing furnace. Their survival instinct should have kicked in because escape was easy. Just bow your knees and you can escape. Escape would have saved their comfort and their lives. But they knew something greater. They trusted in something greater. They knew that if God was putting them through this fire, going to put them, allow them to go into the fire, he was going to have a way of escape and it was going to improve them and refine them. And when they came out of it, they were going to be something better than what they were when they went in. All those shackles that was holding them bound was going to get burned off. It's this perspective of endurance. They refused to escape the pain. They told the king, our God is able to deliver us. But even if he does not, I love it when they say, but even if he does not, we will not bow. They chose the fire over compromise. And folks today, not even in any sort of fire, physically fire, no physical fire, no physical pain, no physical threat of their life, but they bow down to escape discomfort. Now, for these Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, what the fire actually did when were thrown into it, they did not get burned, but it burned the ropes. It said that they were walking around in the furnace, but they were thrown in bound. So that means the things that was holding them bound were burned off. And that's what happens when God allows you to go through a fire. The things that have you bound up are going to be burned off. You just got to learn to get into the fire because God directed you to, and not bow down because the enemy wants to give you an easy way, a cheap way of escape. The fire did not burn them, it only burned the ropes that had them bound. There is this thing when we're talking about escape and taking the easy way. The easier route is actually a mirage. Folk often mistake a way out for a way up. When Abraham or Joseph faced their trials, shortcuts were always available. We can talk about Abraham a little bit later. But with their trials, there were always shortcuts available. Like Joseph giving in to Potiphar's wife, there was always an escape, a shortcut available. Escape looks like an easier route in the short, but it actually forces us to repeat cycles over and over and over again. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about because you take the same shortcut over and over and over again. It presents a temporary form of escape, and before you know it, you're going through that same thing over again. You take the same shortcut over again, and you just stay in this on this hamster wheel of this same cycle, and you never escape it. If you escape a test of growth, you don't beat the system. There isn't no there isn't no easy way to weight loss. You can take a shortcut if you want. You can use all these GLPs or whatever they call them and take all this medication, lose all this weight. But if you don't have a disciplined diet, a disciplined workout program, and everything else, you're gonna gain that weight right back, and you done spent thousands of dollars for nothing. Because everybody nowadays want the shortcut. If you escape the test of growth, you don't beat the system. You just ensure that you're going to have to take the remedial course later. Oh, you're going to go through it again. The easier route is a mirage. Let's talk about the lack of spiritual foresight. Any questions for me or comments on my Zoom call before I move on? The lack of spiritual foresight. What am I talking about? What I mean is this is that endurance. It demands, it requires us to look at the invisible weight of glory, right? While escape, when you're trying to escape, it focus on the visible weight of the problem. Our immediate reaction is to escape because we are looking at what we are losing in the moment: comfort, time, control, people, instead of what we are going to gain in eternity: character, authority, power, proven faith. The world teaches us to keep our eyes focused on what we see in the physical, when the spiritual faith, demands that you see what's going on in the invisible, the things that you cannot see with your eyes, that have not manifested themselves physically, are what you have to hold on to. And nobody under the sound of my voice ever seen Jesus Christ sit on the couch in your house, but you have to have faith that he exists. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. But the world teaches everybody to believe and to count on what you can see, what you can reach out and touch, and it all relates to a microwave faith. Misunderstanding the purpose of the fire, not wanting to go through pain, because we're taught to get everything easy, without pain, without resistance, without work. Our young people are taught this. You can just get everything so easy. Everybody think that they can be an influencer. Everybody think they can be a millionaire. Everybody think they can do these things because the world and the things that we see, social media is teaching everybody that what you see is attainable. Let's move on to my next point. Test of growth. The first test of growth that you have is what I call the refining fire. These are the tests that are designed by God to build your capacity, to tear down your reliance on the flesh or the physical. It's meant to mature your character. These kind of tests are about who you are becoming. It's like gold or silver. Silver. Like gold or silver, we have impurities that only rise to the surface when it's under pressure or heat. And God uses the heat of your circumstances not to destroy you, but to purify you, to purify your dependency upon Him. Malachi 3:3 says, He will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver. A refiner knows the silver is pure when he can see his own reflection in it. I hope y'all didn't miss it. In fact, somebody on my Zoom tell me what you pull out of Malachi 3:3. Who's the refiner? Hello, hello. Who's the refiner? I can't hear you.
God is the refiner.
God is the refiner. And what's something special? What's unique when you apply God to Malachi 3:3 as far as him being the refiner?
You should be able to see him more and more.
Exactly. A refiner, thank you. A refiner knows silver is pure when he can see his own reflection in it. We're created in the image of God. After the fall of mankind, that image is gone. You have to reestablish that image now. You come to Christ, you start establishing that image. The more you do what Pastor Ladd calls progressive sanctification, that's the refining process. You are silver. The more you progress, the better you get, the more refined you get, the clearer God can see himself in you. How clear can he see himself through you right now? And Sunday mornings ain't counting right now because folk think that, oh, I can look like God on Sunday and not look at him the rest of the week. That is a pseudo image or a false image. You don't look like God. You're fooling yourself, but you're not fooling him. Somebody get Romans 5, 3 through 4 because my Zoom, I don't want y'all to be quiet. Romans 5, 3 through 4. Somebody get it quick and read it for me.
Romans 5, 3 through 4. Can you hear
Yes.
me?
Yes.
Okay. And not only so, but we glory in tribulations. Also, knowing that tribulation worketh patience, and patience experience, and experience hope. And hope maketh not ashamed, because the love of God is shed abroad in our hearts by the Holy Ghost, which is given unto us.
Suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope. There's a bunch of folks that cannot persevere through their suffering. As a believer, we don't let suffering destroy us. We don't let suffering conquer us. We don't let suffering defeat us. No, when we're suffering, it's making us stronger. The more pressure you put on me, the stronger I'm going to get. And the stronger you get, the more dangerous you are to the enemy. When you look at Joseph, and y'all can find the story of Joseph in Genesis 30, chapters 37 through 50. But when you go take a look at Joseph, Joseph was given a dream, but to carry the weight of being second in command in Egypt, his pride had to be broken. The pit and the prison were his growth tests. Joseph had to learn faithfulness in obscurity before he can handle power and prominence. I love this right here. I'm about to love this part because there's too many people that want power, they want prestige, they want titles, but they haven't been through nothing. Or better yet, let me rewind it. I wish I had one of them little rewind sounds. They've been through things that they haven't successfully made it through. Everything they go through beats them down to the ground. They have no success in standing, but they want titles. They want power. They want prestige. They want to lead other folk. How can you lead somebody else that's going to go through trials and tribulation, but you can't make it through a trial and tribulation? Joseph, there was a gap between his promise and the provision. This is this is what I call blueprint versus reality. When Joseph was 17, God gave him a dream of leadership and promise at the age of 17. But what God omitted was the syllabus. Joseph didn't have a syllabus with the outline of what he was going to go through and what he had to do and what he had to accomplish along the way. And all the pain he was going to experience, all the obscurity he was going to experience. He didn't have a syllabus for that. Joseph knew the destination, but he did not know the detour. There is a spiritual danger when there is a massive gap, come on now, between what God has promised y'all and what your current reality looks like. I'm about to talk directly to somebody right now because you have a promise that God has given you, but you are in the gap. And what your current reality looks like, it don't line up with what God said your destination is going to be. And the temptation and the enemy, what the enemy like to step in and try to tell you is that God lied to you, or that you misheard God. And then you start doubting, do you even understand the voice of God? You start looking at the people that maybe prophesied to you and saying, are they telling the truth? Is it ever going to happen? Has God left me? Was it not, or did I mishear him? You start having all these thoughts. Joseph's test of growth was maintaining his grip on the character of God while his circumstances were screaming that God had forgotten him. Who has ever been or who is going through a gap period where you've been waiting for God to do the next thing that he's promised you? And it just seems like it's taking so long to manifest itself, to come to fruition. And you start feeling like maybe it wasn't real, or maybe God has forgotten about me. And let me add this, it's also hard when you're in the gap, massive gap, this big gap between the promise and the receipt. You're waiting, waiting, waiting. Meanwhile, you're looking all around, and it seems like folk that don't even care about God, ain't trying to serve them, ain't trying to do nothing. It's like they getting blessed all over the place. What do you do? How do you stay faithful? Let me talk to you about the danger of an unbroken gift. There is a theme where, like with Joseph, oh my God, you're anointed, but you're immature. Joseph, without a shadow of the doubt, was heavily gifted, highly favored by God, uniquely appointed by God. But for those of you that don't know, when you read and study, you'll see Joseph was also arrogant at his young age. He was that annoying sibling. He bragged about his dreams to his brothers. He run around the house wearing that coat of many colors like it was a badge of superiority. Giftedness without character is a disaster waiting to happen. If God has skipped, oh my God, if God has skipped the pit, because when y'all read the story, you'll find out he was thrown into a pit. If God has skipped that pit experience for the 17-year-old Joseph, the unbroken Joseph, and sent Joseph, the unbroken Joseph, straight to the throne of Egypt, his ego would have destroyed him, and his pride would have destroyed the nation. God had to break his self reliance so that when he did get the power, he would use it to serve the people, not the Lord. I'm sorry, not the Lord over them, not to control over them. The pit wasn't the punishment, it was a preparation. And now, folks nowadays want to skip the pit. They don't want to go through the pain of the pit, the building of the pit. They're folks that have been unbroken, but they want all this responsibility. And when they get the responsibility, they cannot handle the weight of the responsibility because they have never been broken or trained to carry it. But you want the blessing now. If God gives you some of the stuff that you want right now, you'll squander it away, spend it away, blow it away, run it away. So he puts us through these periods to break us, which is preparation, not punishment. My God. Joseph had to master obscurity. Joseph was completely invisible to the world, but part of his training was proving that he can be faithful with somebody else's stuff. Before he can get his own, He had to prove that he could be responsible with somebody else's. Before you can lead folk, can you follow? Can you be trusted as a usher or a greeter at the door to greet people with love, with a smile, with a wave, escort them to a seat in the church without an attitude? Can you be trusted with that before you want to get up in front of God's people preaching and teaching? The Lord was always with Joseph. Joseph was destined to prosper, but he had to be built up. He had to be broken and built up. And when you study Joseph, you'll see he didn't wait to get to the throne to start acting like a leader. Folks want to go from the outside of the church straight to the pulpit. No, you got to sit and prove who you are before you get to the next level. Joseph did not wait to get to the throne to start acting like a leader. He was acting like a leader in the trials and tribulations he was going through, proving himself. He earned where he ended up. He worked for where he ended up. If God, if God cannot trust you when nobody is looking, because some people they can be trusted while there's 1,000 eyes on them. Oh my God! God just told me oh my God. It's easy for y'all to love me when I'm in front of you. It's easy for folk to love you when you're in front of them. It's easy for you to love folk when they're in front of you. But do you love them when you're not in their sight? God has to be able to trust you when nobody is watching. And some folk do not, they cannot shine unless there's an audience in front of them. That's what they seek. That's what drives them is the eyes watching, the accolades. Some of you are sitting in a prison. When I say some of you, I'm on these different streams. I don't know some of the folk that's on here, but some of you are sitting in a prison season right now. You have big dreams, but you have a small life. Some of y'all feel over gifted and underutilized. I've been there. Understand this. God is not punishing you. He's preparing you. He is breaking your pride in the dark so that when the spotlight is on you, when the spotlight of the throne comes upon you, it doesn't blind you. If you try to bypass the little things, if you try to bypass the prison, the pit, you try to bypass not being seen. If you try to bypass what you got to do when nobody's watching, you will break under the weight of the throne. You have to let the fire do its work so that when you get the blessings, when you get to the destination, that what's waiting for you won't break you or you won't break it. We're talking about the first kind of test, and it's the test of being refined, prepared, this test of growth. You're often in the waiting room during the test, waiting for a medical diagnosis, waiting for a spouse, waiting for a career breakthrough. The difficulty isn't just the delay, it's that internal wrestling match that you have between anxiety and control, where you want to put your hands in something. They're trying to speed up the process. But you have to shift from a mentality of God fix my problems to God fix my heart. If he fix a problem without fixing your heart, when the next 1,000 problems come, how are you going to deal with them? But if he can fix your heart, then you're in a great position to deal with future problems that's guaranteed to come. But some folk just want the problem fixed while their heart remains tore up. So the first kind of test is the test that prepares you, refines you, strengthens you, gets you ready for the blessing. Then the second test I want to talk about is the test of proof, right? The stress test. These are the tests designed to demonstrate how authentic you are. Establish your testimony. Show whose you are, who you belong to. These are the kind of tests such as that happened with Job that prove to the enemy, to the world, and often to yourself where your allegiance really lies. These are the kind of tests right here you often fail at. Because oftentimes the flesh wins the battle. Because it's something that we end up wanting right now, and we'll take our allegiance from God, from our faith, and we'll turn our allegiance to something that we want, something we're trying to get in the physical, something we want to achieve in life, and we'll take our eyes off of God until we attain it. And the way we're attaining is by how we want to do it. With this stress test, when something is manufactured, it has to go through a stress test to prove it can handle what it was created to hold, the load it was rated to hold. We are all, when God promises us something, we are rated to hold that weight. But in the preparation phase, this is where we're being strengthened and hardened to be able to hold the load. When you go through the test, going through this test is not the time to be trying to get stronger. No, this test is validating your faith. It's validating what you profess. It's validating that what you have is real and that everything else has been stripped away. The test of proofs like this spiritual stress test. In engineering, a stress test doesn't build the bridge. No, a stress test proves that the bridge can handle the load. This isn't about God developing something new inside you. It's about validating what should already be there. When everything else is stripped away, your comfort, your reputation, your safety nets, your money, relationships, the stress test proves whether your anchor is actually hooked to the rock. 1 Peter 1:7 says, "These have come so that the proven genuineness of your faith, of greater worth than gold, which perishes even though refined by fire, may result in praise, glory and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed. Deuteronomy 8:2, when it's talking about Israel, it says, "And you shall remember that the Lord your God led you all the way, these 40 years in the wilderness." Listen to this, "to humble you and test you, to know what is in your heart, whether you would keep his commandments or not." Some of the tests that you are going through, some of y'all are going through right now, is not about growing you, it's about proving what's in you and whose are you. God led Israel in the wilderness for 40 years to test them, to know what was in their hearts. Let's talk about real quick about Abraham. If you want to read the story of Abraham, you can find it in Genesis 22. Some of y'all kind of know the story already. But with Abraham and Isaac, when you look at Genesis 22, you see at this point Abraham, he's an old man that spent his entire life walking with God. He had already survived famine, family conflict, decades of waiting for the child God had promised him. Finally, Isaac was born, the miracle baby, not that other baby, the miracle baby, the sole heir, the physical manifestation of every promise God ever made to Abraham. Then, out of nowhere, God speaks. And he doesn't just ask for a sacrifice, he names the price with brutal precision. He says, "Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah and sacrifice him there as a burnt offering." And you will not find in Scripture where it says Abraham argued with God. You will find that without a word of argument, Abraham gets up early the next morning, gets his donkey, splits the wood for fire, takes his son on a 3-day march. Can you imagine that 3-day march with your son that you're about to sacrifice? On a 3-day march toward the mountain. Then he gets there. He's building an altar with his son there, watching this. Then he takes his son, binds his own child to the altar, raises a knife. God asked Abraham to sacrifice Isaac, the very promise. Not only did God give him that promise, but Abraham waited for decades for the promise. And now God is asking him or telling him, directing him to sacrifice the promise. Do you think that this was to grow Abraham's faith? No. Abraham's faith had already been matured. He had already went through the pain of maturity. But this was an ultimate proof test, stress test. And God says, finally, now I know that you fear God. The blade is up. And now the voice of God comes and say, I know that you fear me now. You have not withheld your son from me. Abraham proved that he loved the giver more than the gift. Do you love the giver more than the gift that you're trying to get a hold of? And the problem is, the truth be told, especially in today's society, is folk love the gift ahead of the giver. Move it. I'm almost there. Do you trust him? What do you do when nobody's watching? What do you do when God gives you a stress test to prove who you are? A few years ago, there was a flight attendant named Sandra, and she was working late night. She was working a late international flight. And after the flight, the plane had emptied out, the cabin was quiet, and she was doing her final walkthrough to check for left behind items before the cleaning crew came aboard. And when she got to one of the seats, tucked deep into the seat pocket in the back row, she found a small, heavy pouch. And when she opened it, her heart stopped. Inside was $25,000 in crisp, unmarked bills, wrapped in a plain rubber band. No ID, no passport, no name tag, just a fortune sitting there in the seat in the dark. Some of y'all right now, I can hear y'all. Man, I don't know what you're thinking. But that is, in that exact fraction of a second, this is where the stress test or the integrity, what I call the integrity and secret test began. Sandra was dealing with severe financial strain at home. She knew the flight log showed that who the passenger was that sat in that seat, and she knows that the log showed that the passenger had already left the airport. The passenger had already went through customs. She knew that if she slipped that envelope into her bag, the airline would never know, the cleaning crew would never know, even that passenger wouldn't even know. And even if he realized it, he or she realized it later, it wouldn't matter because it wouldn't better attribute it back to her that she found it. It was the ultimate nobody will ever find out scenario. Her flesh was screaming, this money is an escape from my problems. But something deep in her, a deep conviction, reminded her of who she belonged to. And instead of walking out to her car with that cash, she walked straight to the airport security office and turned in every single dollar. Some of y'all right now is hurting y'all badly that she turned in $25,000. I know it is. A few days later, a frantic businessman contacted that airline, and come to behold, that was his life savings that was meant to pay for a critical family medical procedure. And when he received the cash back, of course, he wept and was so grateful. This was an integrity and secret test that most folk would fail. Folk that called themselves children of God would fail. But it is a test to prove that your private devotion matches your public profession. Hmm. And to close up the lesson for tonight, there's two tests. There's the test of growth, which is a refining test, and there's the test of proof, which is a revealing test. That's what we've discussed on tonight. Growth and proof. When you're dealing with a growth test, it feels prolonged, it can be painful, and you got to be careful so that you don't get bitter and that you don't give up too soon. Because if you stay the course, the victory, you're going to get the victory. And not only will you get the blessing, but you've achieved a Christ-like character if you just stay the growth test. When it comes to the stress test or the proof test, the revealing test, it demands total sacrifice of something you love. And the danger is that compromise or choosing comfort over obedience shows that you're not really His. But if you don't compromise, you gain an unshakable testimony, not just for you, but for somebody else that's trying to get to that same place. So it is my prayer that you guys have been encouraged on tonight, because I know that we're all going through some sort of test. But when you narrow it down to just two types of tests, and yes, you can be going through both tests simultaneously. It happens. No matter what, stay the course. Don't compromise. Don't give up before you get the result that God has for you to get. And don't make the mistake of proving that you belong to the world or to the enemy or to yourself instead of belonging to God. It's only the test. It is not meant, it's not intended to break you, but it's intended to strengthen you and to prepare you for what God has for you.